We're done.
You're gonna have to live with it.
I can't go back and edit it afterwards.
Possibly. I will try.
We'll just hold the sign, so it's
10:23. It'll be awkward though in the titles. People will get confused, so I'll see if I can change it. All right.
That's, I hereby call this meeting of the Millburn CC School District 24 Board of Education to order at 7:01 PM. Madam Secretary, may you call the roll, please? Here. 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 Rise to the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments?
No, we don't.
All right. All right, board members, do we have any additional non-action items? Oh, all right, we're knocking this stuff off. All right, action items, approval of the math pilot proposal.
Okay. So we are asking the board to approve the math pilot that we presented at the last meeting. So we're piloting two different programs. One is called iReady that we'd like to pilot from November 16th or 13th-ish to January 19th. And then the second program is called Into Math. So we're working with those companies to go through that process. Unfortunately, I don't have specific numbers for how much the pilot will cost, but I have an estimate from both. And today I got the specific numbers for the first one, and that was $5,700 and some dollars would be the first one. It's actually a little bit higher than what I put in the board notes for last week, because they're charging us, instead of $12 for the workbooks, it's $14.50. Apparently the salespeople didn't know that the price had gone up recently for printing. So that's the cover. So we get 10% of our population, whatever that is, we get that many books for free. But beyond that, because we're a pretty big pilot, there's 338 kids piloting this program. They don't want to cover all that cost. So that one's $5,700, and the other one is going to be $5,000 to $8,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. We don't, depending on how much free materials, and we're meeting with them and the pilot manager on Thursday. So my suggestion is to approve the pilot up to $15,000, which is actually pretty low for a pilot. I know our reading curriculum was upwards of 40 or 50,000 to just to pilot it at that time, because it's materials that we are purchasing that we would keep, or their consumables. All of the digital access will be free for all of the pilots, but some of the printed materials we have to pay for, and the professional development to learn how to use it, at least enough to get us going.
And to refresh me, because also late last time.
That's
50 words or less. The reason we moved it to
the reason why it's better than what we currently have. So what we currently have is not aligned to the state standards. So at the elementary school, especially, our teachers are taking a lot of time supplementing material. So they're going out to the internet and just, if they're trying to teach, let's say fractions in 4th grade, instead of having that already done and in a program that matches the workbooks that the kids are using, our teachers are going out, making copies, finding lessons to create their own materials.
So the lessons are the same.
The standards are the same. So what we're trying to teach the kids is the same. The current curriculum doesn't match up with the state's progression as well as it should.
Different curriculums we have going into different high schools. That was one of our concerns with math.
That's a different question. So that's a good question. So the way this is focused on the K-8 curriculum, so a typical state K-8 curriculum. Some of our kids finish that curriculum in 6th grade. Some of them finish in 7th grade and some will finish in 8th grade. But this pilot is only for that core K-8 curriculum because we're finding that if kids go just through that curriculum and end in 8th grade, there's about 27% of those kids are meeting the state standards. And we'd like to bump that up. So we're really focusing on that group, getting them up. And the kids who finish in 6th grade then would go on to a high school curriculum. And that's the question that gets tricky on which high school direction to match for those kids. Once they hit that. That's separate. That's a separate. Good question. Now, if they're in, and the good news is for the kids who finish in 6th grade, if we do the traditional Algebra 1 geometry progression, they'll be ready for either Lakes or Gray's Lake or Warren, because Math 1 and 2 is covering the same topics at Lakes. So it's pretty close, and they would go right into Math 3.
And if they go into Math 3, they can
Thanks.
get in a program at the high school where they actually started in college credits by like their junior year. Or it's only like.
Correct. No, all the schools have that program. So the AP, I can briefly go over the progression just as a reminder, because I love talking about it. So
I don't want to hold up our meeting.
it's okay. It's a good reminder for
We're way over
everybody.
50 words.
So if students at Millburn finish honors geometry in 8th grade, so we have one section of honors geometry in 8th grade, which can range from, it's been as high as 40 kids, depending on the grade level, and as low as 25 kids. Usually it's around 30 kids are in that highest section that finish honors geometry. Then in Lakes, they would go to Math 3 as freshmen if they did well in those courses. Some kids go to Math 2, and that's okay as well. Honors Math 2. But the kids typically would go to honors Math 3, then as freshmen. As sophomores, they would have pre-algebra. As juniors, they would have, or pre-calc, I'm sorry, not pre-algebra, pre-calc. Yeah, they have pre-algebra in 6th grade. Then they would have, as juniors, they can choose to do Calc AB or Calc BC. If they do AP Calc BC, that's going through Calc 1 and 2 of college. It's the equivalent. If they do Calc AB, that's going through Calc 1 and a little bit beyond. So then as seniors, the tricky part, and what I don't know is what the best path to take. They would take AP statistics, or they could do AP computer science to meet their math credit. Either one of those two, or both. They could do both. But that AP stats, for those kids, pretty easy class by the time they got to that level.
So they could enter college with up to 8 or 10 math credits.
Yeah.
Oh,
Correct. And so then in college, the trick is at college, as freshmen, hopefully they have a chance to get into a math class at their first semester of their freshman year. And calculus, having not had calculus since their junior year, they struggle a little bit with going right into that Calc 3. Because it's been so long since they've had calc, so they're doing a little catch up, and it's a little bit tough for them because they did it so long ago. Instead of going right through that progression like they would have. Plus, they're pretty young as a junior to be handling that heavy of a heavy load. But they do it. Or they go to probability and statistics at the college level, which would be that next level.
so what
course.
we're voting on tonight is basically for the format.
Yep. The core math K-3. So how do we get our kids really solid on the fundamentals of math that's going to carry on, all of our kids carry on for the rest of their life?
I move to approve the math pilot program proposal for a cost not to exceed $15,000.
Okay, and motion has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Oh, yeah, we have to do a roll call. Dang it.
Dr. Hudson,
Yes.
Fred Steffi,
Yes.
Pat Green,
Yes.
Julian Hope, yes. John
Yes.
Mills, and Fred Stefan.
Yes.
All right.
Motion passed.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Now we've got some work to do, so. We'll get cracking on that tomorrow. The teachers will get an email that says November 8th is there gonna be our first professional development day. November 1st, we're gonna meet just to talk about what we want to look at it for these programs and how to go about that. So thank you very much.
Tips, purchasing membership.
So, this is a request, for the board to approve a purchasing cooperative named TIPS. So purchasing cooperative, it gives us the opportunity to buy supplies and services at a reduced rate through the purchasing cooperative. In order for a school district to participate in any cooperative, the district needs the board's approval. So essentially I'm asking the board for approval to, sign the TIPS membership agreement so that we can access the goods and services within that, cooperative. There's no cost. to participate.
So the question I have with that is, it said in the contract that school districts within Texas or government agencies within Texas are not allowed to join it. But then there's an article there that says if we have an issue, we have to go to a court in Texas. And it just seems a little dissonant to me that like agencies in Texas aren't allowed to do it, but then we need to solve a problem there.
I think it's a cooperative maybe based out of Texas. I wouldn't anticipate there being any issues with the cooperative. So essentially what we would be doing, and the reason I'm asking for this specific cooperative is because within it is a company that sells floorings for the East Gym here, rubber gym flooring. We're working with our flooring company to get the best rate for it. So if we had an issue with the product, we would be working with our flooring company to do a little bit of a buffer there. And anticipate us having to go to Texas. We work with other cooperatives and we have never had any issues like getting our products or services.
And have you ever done this particular one before? Or is this a new?
So this is a new one. We have more permission to use it. So we're asking for it, but no, we haven't used it yet.
Do you know other people who have used it, heard good things about it? I'm sure they're negative.
And it doesn't mean we have to use them, right?
Right.
It's only for the bidding process to be accessing those pricing.
Right, exactly.
So
Right, and it's
I
not
think-
that, that's a good point. We may never use it. We may not decide to move forward right now with the Eastern project. It's just having that ability to go out there and look at different cooperatives and places to see who's selling, say, paper at the lowest rate and getting that paper at the lowest rate.
And what we'd be buying would be the same thing, and we're just joining a co-op, right? So it's not like we're even getting a different product, and then we're just basically getting a better price, right?
So this cooperative is working with their different companies and basically doing a bidding for us to get the lowest rate. So they're able to work with those companies and say, we'll bring more business to you because we're reaching out to them.
I moved to approve the TIP first and membership agreement.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Motion's made second. We don't need a roll call?
correct.
Nope. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Motion was made. Brandon seconds. We do need a roll call.
Perfect. Brandon Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Petronelli,
Yes.
Julian Hope, yes. John Rogers,
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. We're approving the consent agenda. Yes. My bad, my bad. Bills. Yes.
Fred Stefan,
Yes.
and John Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Information discussion. Makeshift designs for school report card.
Awesome. Let me shrink this down a little bit so the board can see what I'm showing to the public.
I don't want to see this.
Okay, so each year, the state puts out what's called a summative designation for every school district in the state. It's kind of our grading system. It replaces the old grading system. It's called the balanced accountability model. It's been around since about 2018-ish. And we haven't talked a lot about it because it was 2018-19, and then in 2020, they kind of there was nothing to account for. And also at that time in 2018-19, we were just getting into our current assessment, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. So there was a lot of changes. There was no real data at that time to go back, or historical data to even make the numbers up that they were trying to accomplish or to show. So anyway, it hasn't really, it was in effect for 1 year, and then it was COVID, and then it was COVID again, where they didn't count any of the data because we weren't getting good data. Not everybody took the test, etc. And then now we're in that first phase again where it's actually going to count. So I think this is a good time to go into what's in it. I'm going to go pretty high level brush, and then if anybody wants to go deeper, I can try to answer some questions tonight, but we could spend hours going into the minutia of this and how it's calculated as well. So I will go as far. Tons. Yeah.
That's what I saw when I was browsing. I just want to make sure that there was specific.
Yep. So on the state website has some good explanations. There's actually webinars you can go to for each section that I'm going to talk about tonight that explains it and gets into the calculations. So the math behind each of the calculations is there. I even have questions beyond that to get to, okay, so what are really they looking at? Where are they pulling the data to put into the formulas, and what do they mean? But we can get the general idea. So summative designation report. Does this? There we go. There we not go. Okay. So there are 4 levels for the summative designation report, and that's impossible to read from here. But the idea is that we go from exemplary down to intensive support. So the idea is that if if schools are at the intensive support level, they're getting additional state funding to use. It's not a ton of money, but they're getting additional state money to use. And then they would have to go through a different process for improvement and write an improvement plan to try to move up to comprehensive. There's information at comprehensive that they would have to go through in steps to move up to targeted. And then they try to get from targeted support up to commendable. And the idea is that everybody should be at least in the commendable category. Of course, everybody wants to get into that exemplary category. We all want to be exemplary. Although when I went to a meeting to explain all of this last spring, to try and get a handle on, hey, what's going into this and how we should know what this is measuring so we know what to improve and what is this telling us. The presenter said, be careful about exemplary because it's really hard to live there because of so much of the score is based on growth and percentile growth. So it's hard to maintain that steep trajectory for many years over time. So school districts are going to go into exemplary and come back to commendable, go into and so on and so forth, depending on the year and what's going on in the district. There's a score out of 100 that we get. So to get into that exemplary score, the cut score this year is 81.33. The reason that I say this year is because that can change year to year, because it's the top 10% of all scores go into that exemplary category. So you got to be in the top 10% of school districts to get exemplary. So this year, that's a total score of 81.33. Elementary was 79.16. And middle school was 78.86. So we were really right on the edge of those exemplary scores, which is important to keep in mind as I go through this and show, okay, where should we be focusing our energies on, or what, or not. It's something, again, this is kind of metadata. It's hard to draw too many conclusions, but it's good to look at and understand what goes into this. It's also important to remember exactly what this is measuring, but also the impact that this may have on our community as far as our home values and other aspects of the community. So it all goes into that. Is there too much pressure or too much emphasis put on that? Absolutely, we could have that conversation, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to go through this today.
It's the top 10% of the scores.
Scores.
I'm sorry, what scores?
Good score.
Yeah, but what, how are we getting the exemplary, like?
To have a,
No, I
to
know
get
that's
this-
the score we want, yeah, what makes, like, are they looking at map data?
Yeah.
Are they looking at SAT, like?
No.
SAT's higher, but, so it's all based on map scores?
so let's look at that.
All right, sorry.
That's a good question,
Well, I was
Peter.
like, well,
Is there a cut score for the other levels, or is it just?
This is K-8. There's a different cut score for the high schools because the high schools have a whole different measuring system.
No, but
Or not percent wise.
is commendable, like
Not 20%.
10% to 50%?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. So there's only commendable and then everything else I believe is targeted. I didn't pay close attention to that because we're up here. It's pretty low. I think it's in the 30s to get to commendable, or 40s. I don't want to speak out of turn. Good question.
So how would the growth factor make it harder? I mean, if it's top 10%. Whether you grow or not, I assume everybody would be on the same goal, be staying about 10%, or does that just, like, everybody up there drops back down, like? Just kind of follow what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I think it'll become a little bit clearer once we understand this. So don't let me forget about that question. So this is elementary and middle schools. K-8's all in the same scoring realm, and then high schools below. So the academic indicators on the top to make up this 75%. So that's 75 points out of 100 are based on our English language arts growth. And that is on the Illinois Assessment of Readiness test. So that's growth, and the way they measure growth is taking a student who scored, let's say they got, I'm just making up points. Let's say they got 150 points last year. So they would measure all the kids in third grade that got 150 points on the IAR last year on that test. And then measure how far they grew on the fourth grade test. And there's your data point. So each student then is assigned a growth score. And then you take the average of all of our students in fourth grade of how far they grew from third grade to fourth grade. And then you take the average of that across the state of every school district, how they grew. And that's where we get our points that I'll explain later. So that it's on the state assessment, one shot in the spring. 25% is based on English language arts growth, 25% on math growth, same thing. So that's 50% of the test is based on growth. So an underperforming school could see significant growth one year and outscore us. That there's a minimum level too. There's a floor in here built into the, you can't be exemplary if you have a group that's, way low, top or the lowest 5% of the state. But you can kind of see some lower performing schools would do pretty well for 1 year or 2 years. Which is great, which I think is more important personally. This is what I've been fighting for a long time, and they actually did it, which is lovely.
ELA is 75% and math is 25%.
No, both 25.
Okay,
For the, for proficiency.
I guess, okay, so we'll go three for they're equal.
So then there's a proficiency score. So we still get points to meet the proficiency target. Millburn is well above the proficiency target. So we are on achievement, a high performing district. I don't know where we're at across the state as if we're in that top 10% or not, but we're a high performing district, relatively speaking. High proficiency. And also, as you'll see, high growth, which gets us those good scores. Then the science proficiency makes up 5%. In the science, they can't do growth in science because we only take it in 5th grade and 8th grade. So there's no growth. It's just, there's a cut score, how many kids are over it. And that's 5% of that academic indicator. And then the final indicator is 5% is English learner progress to proficiency. So there's a measurement. This was a very complicated math that I didn't get into or look at too closely because it's such a small piece of it. And we only have enough kids at the middle school to even or at elementary to measure it. We don't have enough children at the middle school that would fit that category to even provide a measurement score. And even then at the elementary school, it's 28 students that are even measured. And when you break it down by grade levels, it's 20 kids in the 3, 4 and 8 kids in the 4, 5 or 5, 6, whatever that. So it's a very small percentage and a small number of kids.
Is this everybody, including special needs kids as well?
Everybody,
Just everybody.
everybody, because kids with special needs, this is the beauty of the growth is that we want them to grow. So they should show growth. That's why it takes last year's score. So if the average was 150 and we have students that are scoring at 100, it'll take all the kids who are scoring at 100 and that next year to see how they grew over that year's time. It's not perfect. It's better. So all of those academic indicators make up 75%, and then 25% is school quality and student success, which for elementaries is only the climate survey, which is 5% of it.
And where does that come from? Is
The
that-
5 essentials,
That's like parents fill that out in the spring?
parents and students. So it's a percentage of parents and students that fill it out. So we get measured based on the percentage of people that fill it out. There's no
So it's based on the percentage of people who fill it out, not what they say
correct,
about, so
correct.
that's why.
It's a participation rate.
Yeah.
It's a participation rate. And then 20% is chronic absenteeism.
And is that, and the Mustang Minute then had that as our question, but is that defined by the state then? or-
Yep.
Okay.
10% or more,
10%?
Yep.
So 17.
17 days ish, 17 and a half. So if you hit 18 days, that's chronic absenteeism. Doesn't matter if they're excused absences. It's not truancy. Truancy is when you have absences where kids are skipping school for no reason or their parents don't call them in for whatever. But these are excused absences,
Like, because they're legally allowed to take 5 mental health days now.
right? But that
It's
counts
an
in.
absence, not.
Right.
How many, what are we at school wise for that? You know, like what percentage of our students are chronically absent?
Well. So I've been trying to monitor chronic absenteeism in less than years. Last year. Just over 120 people.
Just at elementary. 120,
Just over 100.
just over 120 just at elementary out of 700 kid. Out of 730. So that's a lot,
Close to 20%.
almost 20%.
Well, I think one of the factors that made that go up is, we're really saying, if you're sick at all, stay home, you know, I mean, you like pop twice in the morning, you'll pretty much stay.
That's part of it.
And, you know, you can't come back if you're missing a day or two.
That could be part of it.
But I promise you that's part of it.
As a school district, though, we are less cautious than other districts in our area. So that's part of it. And again, this is a bell curve, keep in mind. So chronic absenteeism is a problem in our school, and it's more than just that. That would make sense, but when you look at the students in the list, that's what Ben is looking at with the staff to say, okay, let's really dig in.
Right. That's what. We're going back. We're not going all the way back to. COVID. So, just to try to see if this, it feels like 2 years in a row, kind of gaps. One, big chunk around the 17 lanes. And a big chunk of this double. Here's the support. Question is that.
Not that we would see it, but do you see the data and do you see the correlation between kids being chronically absent and their test scores?
Yes, but most of the correlation I see is, let us say test scores, but once identified with their own assessments that need extra support for that school.
So it's on you guys, since it's starting with, you know, it's contributing.
Do we see this? You know. Per cohort, if someone's say in kindergarten, do we see this continuing? In first, second, third? I know. Our kindergarten policy is, hey, if you have a day, if you just need them. Take the day off. Is that? You know, it's interesting that you bring that up because. For the last few years, we've seen an increase of absences with kindergarten. Goes to school, it can be, they're not immune yet to sickness and things like that. They usually kind of is lower and lower once they get to their levels. But what sometimes what doesn't use currency. We have a student that because right now the law states students age 5 need to be in school. It was age 6, now it's age 5. And yet the truancy law is not changed. And so, for example, we did have a student that had excuse absences. We try to go through our problem solving steps here at school. It was the point where we had to file truancy, but because the child was not age 6 yet, the truancy office can do it. Even though the law says they have to be at school, truancy aspect didn't actually factor into all age 6. So sometimes things don't line up, but we try to do it. But definitely over the last couple of years, majority of that 120 some kids, a lot of it's.
And that's okay. The hard part for me is we want to support parents, and kids can do great things at home and going on vacations to different places. And some of our kids are traveling all over the world at times. So those are great experiences that we don't want to take away from kids either. So we're targeted, that's why we're looking at the list saying, okay, what really is it? And how important is it? And it's more the kids who are maybe not sick, or is it school avoidance? Are there other sports that we need to get in place? Let's look at those kids and get that number down so it's a realistic number. Because we need the kids to be in school. If they're not in school, they're not learning. And if, think about teachers are absent at times too, they get sick or they have family obligations too. So if a student has gone 18 times, and then if a teacher's gone 5 more times on a different days, if their days don't line up, that also contributes to that learning loss. So we want to be very careful about that. It's a hard message because we don't want sick kids in school, because people send their sick kids to school. Because the kids will tell us in the nurse's office, yeah, I threw up at home too this morning, but
Yeah.
Mom said, try it out.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a lot, but it does happen, and it's hard for parents to get daycare and last minute, and it's definitely a difficult situation. So we want to be very careful on how we word, get your kids to school, but not if they're sick. Or put too much guilt on, maybe a little bit of guilt for vacations. Maybe just
Lesser in middle school.
a little bit of guilt for vacations. If we're going to Disney World, and I know that the prices are insane with Disney World, and if you get cheaper flights and the off times, I understand it. I get it.
Heading down to the planetarium for the solar eclipse though.
Yeah. So those are good learning experiences.
Middle school better, I assume? Or is it the same?
No, that's the same. Yeah. At least relative to whatever our points, however they calculate the scores are pretty close. They're a little bit better. Barely. Yeah, well, that's good to hear. That's, yeah. Yeah, so let's break this down a little bit. High school, again, it's part of that sheet. You can look that up. It's a little bit different calculation. It's a little bit easier as far as the points go, but then it's again it's great on the curve. So their cut score is 91 because their points are a little bit easier to amass, and there's fewer categories. So this breaks it down again. For proficiency and the points, it's just another way of looking at what those other graphs were, and it's really small. So I'm going to skip ahead to getting into Millburn's scores in a little bit more clear manner. So I'm going to see if I can get my pointer over here. This is elementary school. So proficiency, again, proficiency, we're not even close to the bar. We're way above it. We get 100% of those points, but it's not worth as much as the growth, which is good. I agree with this. This is a good thing. So we get 100% of those points. Wonderful. ELA growth at elementary is outstanding. 84th percentile. That's really, and I don't know what this percentile means. I don't think that's 84th out of 100 school districts achievement in the state. That's just, well, I know what it means for this chart. This means that we got 84% of the possible points. So 25 is perfect, 21 is really good. I was just trying to get a comparison across where our areas of strength are and where our areas of weakness are as a school. Math proficiency, again, outstanding. Math growth at the elementary could use some improvement, which is why we're doing a math pilot. We know this. We have some inconsistencies with teachers across grade levels and grade levels vertical alignment. We're working on it, and that's what a curriculum will do. Science proficiency, we rock that. And then English learners progress to proficiency. That is low. Again, that's a very few students. And I was looking at the percentage of students that actually met these same kids who actually met the standards was about our average. Like, so I've got to look at how this is working. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me that we would be that low, other than there's some way in the calculation. So
Where does that 68% put us on the boat for? Are we in the middle or we're not behind?
I have no idea.
Back end or anything?
I have no idea. And then chronic absenteeism. So we're only getting 13.3 points out of 20, and that's just showing up to school. So that seems to be an easier one to handle, maybe. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe our district doesn't. Maybe we have more well-rounded experiences for kids. I know a lot of kids take off for sports and have tournaments. Families go on vacation at different times. That's just the value of our community. Maybe that's reflected here and maybe that's okay. But we have to make up, we don't have to. It'd be nice to be exemplary. If,
It'd be nice if they could weight that growth as well. I mean, when you're really high, it's hard to get a really high growth, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe.
once you improve enough. You won't be able to improve it.
Right,
Like,
you know,
it-
going from
because
93 to
it's gonna
95
be
is
really
really
tough.
good, but
Yeah.
it's not a huge growth.
Right.
yeah, and we'll see that trend over time, I'm assuming, and see what we can do there.
Who worked with ISB to come up with this? Just
Um,
out of curiosity.
There's a lot of committees. It was a
Are there?
balanced, what is it? Balanced accountability model. There's a huge committee. I know there's superintendents on it, principals on it,
Okay.
teachers on it. All the unions were involved. It was a big, there's a lot of bickering back and forth because the list of accountabilities started this long and then it got to this, which is a little more reasonable. I like the premise, though, that they're basing it on growth because this is what was frustrating me for many, many, many years because it shows where the value added for the school is in the district, more so than, hey, if our kids are showing up at the 95th percentile, or let's say they're showing up at the 85th percentile and they leave us at the 85th percentile. Did the school do much? Where's the value added there? And there's other things where we can measure, but
If we're going on total points. Absenteeism is killing us. You get 4 points quick there, we're 2 points over.
I know,
That's insane.
right? So I think our parents need to know that attendance counts on this report.
Which counts on the school rating,
Mhm.
which counts on the taxes and people moving.
All that.
Yeah.
All that. So we've got a little communicating to do. So that's MES. MMS, very similar. They don't have MMS if you look at the ELA growth. And math growth, they don't have a biggest discrepancy between math and ELA. They're both pretty good, but neither one of them are like super strong either. Again, chronic absenteeism.
I mean, you're missing 6 points out of that. You could take 6 points up. You could be two points for proficiency and 100% at absenteeism. It's the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's a lot.
Now, are there ways you can work, I don't know. So like, let's say that family takes that vacation, are they able to get assigned work to take with them and have that count on a school day or?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yes.
that's not getting done.
So I'm going to, what we have done in the past for students who maybe go overseas for a month, because we have students that go overseas for a month with parents on a trip. We would unenroll them and then re-enroll them when they come back. I want to make sure that's okay. So we can look at some things like that, or are we tracking this correctly? Is there something that we're not accounting for that other districts are doing to look at that? So we will look into it.
I think that's kind of fun. I mean, seriously, if you had the same thing, yeah, and you had 100% absenteeism, and you got 20 points, and you were at 0 on science proficiency, I mean, 0. You're
Still,
better off with 0 science proficiency and 100% absenteeism.
correct,
Because we're missing more than 6 points in for science proficiency, we only get 5.
correct. Agreed. So the bottom line is, we're doing really well. It's a very good score. Chronic absenteeism, as we talked about, at a score. Talked about ELA's relative strength at MES, math is relative weakness at MES. And again, this is only part of the story and a piece of information to look at. It's an important piece, I think, to consider, but does it tell us everything? No. does have outsized ramifications. For what it's worth, for kids on
Does this
one
tie
day.
any funding or
One
any of
day.
that?
Nope. No, it only, the way it would tie to funding is if we were targeted school, so we'd get some extra money, but it's not.
Right, but it won't affect us
No.
negatively.
No. Nope. It's always better to be high than low. So again, if you, the state website has gobs of information and you can go real deep. If you have some time. And are interested. Any other questions about that one?
Planning update.
So I've been asking the board in the notes in the last couple of weeks. And going on the conversation that we had at the last meeting. And I'm thinking about how do we structure moving forward and where do we start? John and I talked a little bit last week too about how do we start the process and who do we start with? He suggested starting with the board, and I've seen this in some other processes. I'm thinking if we had a session, an initial session with the board and the district leadership. So our administrative team and maybe some other leadership staff members. If we started with a smaller group and did a session, and then it's a little bit different focus going out from there. It's, okay, what does our community feel? Are we aligned as the district leadership? Are we aligned with our community? Then we can talk about that and then come back. So it's more of a diamond shaped process versus a pure funnel. I kind of like that idea. Then board is involved from the beginning, and then it's more of a comparison and see where we're at. That doesn't mean we have a final plan at the beginning. So that's one question. If you're okay with that, I would propose that we do that at the November 13th meeting and maybe start at 6 o'clock. And just, that would be our committee meeting. If that would work, just do a longer meeting and then start the committee of the whole meeting after that, if necessary, or even in place of. Or it would actually be part of the agenda, just start early.
13th.
Yeah, I think it's Monday, November 13th. It's a big week and I know you're already going to be gone on some people Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. So think about that for a second. And then the other question I have is our mission, vision, and values. Do we want to revisit that? We can do that simultaneously. Not at the same session necessarily, but do that in another session of revisiting just those mission, vision, values. Do we want to do that? Okay. To confirm or change or tweak or whatever we see. I'd be happy to go through that as well.
So for the strategic planning, do you have like a assignment syllabus or something for us to, what we should think about for that, or?
I will.
Whatever we. come up with?
So the first questions, the way that I'm envisioning this, and I haven't finalized the whole night and set it all up, but there would be an agenda and a process to go through. So the first question might be something like, describe the Millburn district in. Just give everybody a couple minutes to write down descriptors of the Millburn district, and we all describe what Millburn is as a district. And then the next step might be, okay, now describe some of the strengths of the Millburn district and the weakness, do a SWOT analysis. So you're building up to your priorities of what we feel should be a priority moving forward for the district. some issues. So when you talk about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and challenges, you can kind of get into that nitty gritty a little bit, have that conversation.
I prepared a possible mission statement and my reasoning behind it. I didn't want to send it to everybody else to read and.
Yeah.
Meeting laws. I don't know if I send it to you to forward to everybody before that meeting, so they can review it and think about it. It's just ideas.
Oh, for the mission statement?
Yeah,
So you want to redo the mission statement?
well, that's me first. I have some ideas and, verbiage and whatnot, but, and my reasoning behind it, but.
Right.
It's not what we're talking about now, just.
I this is reviewed, done by reviewed in years.
So the mission. Okay. So if you want to redo the mission statement, rewrite a mission statement. Reviewing it's one thing, that's just a, look at it, tweak it, whatever, rubber stamp it. If we're gonna redo the mission statement, I would suggest that's a whole separate night. So we did it, the last time we did it, it was 2.5 hour session. And we had it done in 2.5 hours with 30 people. And people who do this for a living said you couldn't do it. You can, but it was really pushing people to get into that. So the way you do that is called groups of increasingly larger size. So you're gonna write yours, John's gonna write his. Then you guys pair up and say, okay, you've got your idea, I got my idea. How do we mesh those two? And then you're gonna pair up with 2 others. So now you have 4 people together, and you keep doing that until you get to the whole group. And then you have discussion about the words that are important. And you'll see some of the words pop into our current mission statement were important to some people to make sure that we got global in there, because we want to focus just beyond Millburn and serve our community. So why are we teaching kids? Well, we're not just teaching them to move on to the high school. We want to teach kids to go out and produce, to serve, to better our community, was part of why that was important to those people at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We can all just confirm if we had read the statement. Maybe a word or two. It doesn't have to go-
So you either confirm, or we could go through a process and rewrite it. And so I'm okay either way.
I think we would need to sit down and review it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would want to do it for.
well, it just seems like some people want to change it, others, like, I think the mission statement is fine, I think the lines to what our goals are, there might be a couple of things that might be changed, like word, but I don't think it needs to be a complete, yeah. Because it is very difficult to form a mission statement, it takes a lot of time. I just want to make sure that that's a big use of our board time.
Do you want to send us the mission statement? We can review it for the next meeting.
Yeah, it should be on the wall.
Oh,
It was on the wall.
where is it?
About creating a culture of learning that.
Yeah. Actually, it's on the top of your
Yes.
agenda.
Where?
Exists to create a culture of learning that inspires and empowers students to enrich our community.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm good either way. So, are we, what do you want to do? What do we want to
What do we
do?
want to do? Obviously, we need to have a discussion on it.
Yeah,
So I would put it up for discussion at the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, let us read it and
Come up with
No,
thoughts,
a
and
little
maybe we might come up with,
Maybe,
we might like it. We might come up with each of our own, and we'll send yours to Jason so he can distribute it. We'll review the new one.
you can distribute any information, by the way. So that's a good question. That's a good question. I didn't answer that question. Yeah, you can send out information. You just can't respond as a group.
so
So-
no group chats.
No reply alls. But yeah, anytime you need to push out information, just as FYIs, go for it.
And we can review it, and if someone else wants to come up with a different one, blast it to us before the next meeting, and we'll talk about it.
So let's shift our thinking then for the next meeting. To review the mission, vision and values statements. For that,
During the regular meeting?
yep, during the cow meeting. That will be our night. Cause that'll take,
That's gonna be a lot.
yeah, that's good. That's help. That's what I needed.
Okay.
From the board tonight is an idea of timelines and shifting it out.
Well, if we were really prepped for it, then if we come in and we haven't looked at it, then.
No,
it's
no,
gonna be forever.
No, you need to know what to expect, right? Yep, I just didn't know if I was going that direction or jumping right into the next portion. Cool.
Quiz, nobody can move those. Scary. Future agenda items. Talk about levy,
All about the levy.
and the bus lease approval.
Yes, bus lease approval. So we're gonna have to, we need small buses. Last year we went through the big bus lease and now we need small buses.
We
Those
found
leases
small
are,
buses.
they're out there allegedly, but now we're working through how to get through the bid process. So Carly's working like crazy. That
That co-op had any influence in the bus stuff? No,
You
seriously,
never know.
I mean,
There's apparently, I was talking to our attorney, there is one. I have to look into that a little bit more. It's more activity buses. That's not what we're
Okay.
gonna have. We need yellow buses, we need wheelchair buses still. But I will see if there are any other co-ops out there. I'm looking at the tips one. as well. What was that? There you go. Just that one.
right.
always
Like-
co-op.
Carly's gonna-
I think it would be buses.
All right, superintendent report.
Okay, I'm meeting with CEDAW on Thursday and Friday with the 31 member districts. And we're gonna be talking about tuition and it's really more talking about the strategic planning for CEDAW moving forward because they've had a big review done and now we're looking at, okay, so where do we want CEDAW to be? How do we want services to be provided for our kids? What's the best programming for kids at the most efficient level that we can? So there'll be a lot of discussion about that in the future. The last tuition reset that was done was in 2015, and that had a big impact on CEDAW at that time, and now we're in, things have happened, a lot of things have happened, the funding formulas changed, everything's changed since then, so now we're going back and revisiting. Did that work? Was it effective? What do we want to do from here moving forward to get the best services for our kids? So that's great, and that'll be Thursday, and Fred, I'm sure you'll hear an update in December at their next governing board meeting. Cross-country team, as John mentioned, they're pretty darn good.
Was that 12? Girls got third in the state and made the podium.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Our Lakes cross-country team is also doing well, and it's interesting to see the kids not only on Lakes, but on Warren and Grays Lake North, the kids who leave here and are and ones at Carmel. So our last year's 8th grade team had a huge impact on the sectional meet on Saturday from several different schools. A lot of Millburn kids. It's really fun to see. And then we have the Triple I conference, which is coming up in
Everyone get ready, we're gonna have fun.
3 weeks.
That's an order.
That's an order, you will have fun.
So we'll be pushing out. Veronica makes a little bit of an agenda and a plan for Friday night and Saturday night after the sessions are over. Is we have the opportunity to go to different receptions where they'll have appetizers out. And then if we want to go to dinner, I would suggest that we do that on Friday night. Not go out to dinner on Saturday night because it's very difficult as a group. Very difficult to get around on Saturday night because there's the holiday parade downtown and finding transportation is impossible to cross the street and the mobs of people, so. Hopefully the weather will be nice. So we can walk different places or not. We don't have to. But if you have questions about it, let me know. I'll be sending out some information and requests, and if you can respond, that would be great. That's it for me.
Business office report.
Okay.
There it is. All right.
So if we scroll down to the second bullet, just an update on the audit. It's truly wrapping up. Our auditor thinks they'll be done with it late October, early November, and be able to present shortly after that. So probably not that first November meeting. It sounds like would be the best idea, but maybe later November, December. The third bullet, unfortunately, Millburn experienced some check fraud in late September. So what it seems like, maybe someone intercepted a check in the mail and made a copy of some checks that totaled just under $2,500. We immediately started working with the school district's bank to ensure that future checks would not, we wouldn't experience this again. So we implemented something called positive pay. And so what this does is every time we write checks, we send a file to the bank that lists the check number, the date, the name of who the check was written out to, the amount. And when someone goes to cash that check, it's compared against that file. And if there are any discrepancies, regardless, any checks that are being cashed, a file goes over to our bank system, and we have to approve it essentially each day. These age withdrawals. So that's now in place. We're doing this daily, making sure that everything is legit as it's being cashed. They're able to get that money back. Police report was filed. And oh, and one other thing I wanted to note too, with positive pay, there is a cost of $55 a month to the bank to do that, but it will help in the long run.
Do we know what the cost there was, and is it a union member, or is it a organized ring?
Probably the latter, because the check was not cashed. So, and I don't think that we would find out. I don't think the bank will be able to tell, and the sheriff did not feel confident in saying that they would be able to find out who that was.
They're not being so that they're not gonna put any resources into.
Right, exactly. But good news, so now we have a process in place to ensure it doesn't happen. And then the next two items we covered in the last couple of meetings, just the tax levy schedule. And yep, so the first reading of the tax levy will be at the November 13th board meeting. And then we will look for an approval for a publication of retrieve and taxation statement at the second meeting in November. And then in December at the board meeting on the 11th, we would ask for board approval for the levy. Very last item is I'm still waiting to get quotes on the different maintenance project options that we can use for the school maintenance pilot grant. I was hoping to have that for this meeting. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple of our suppliers. That will be we'll touch on that in the next board meeting as well. And that's it.
All right, board reports. Nothing, all right.
I have a question about our consent agenda. Is typically the temper, someone we were training to drive the bus resign. That's one of the reasons I got to look at. So
What was
they,
the question?
one of the resignations that we approved. Someone looks like we were training to drive a bus and now they quit.
Resigned even before truly started, and so they accepted the position, and then as they realized all of the steps it takes, which we did explain in the, after they realized all the steps that it would take to become a bus driver, there's taking tests, many hours of watching videos and training, getting a CDL license, we decided that it's not a level of effort they want to put in right now.
So that's the reason.
Yeah.
No,
They didn't even survey.
Like,
Yeah.
well, if somebody wants to do that, are they expected to come in with a CDL or do we?
We pay for the training.
yes, it's a good deal. If you know anybody,
Anything else? No? I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Let's go home.